Welcome to Zoe Stories. Slipped into the dress to pay the bills. Now everything changed. I took a deep breath, staring at the small pile of bills that seemed to mock me from the edge of the kitchen table. Rent, electricity, phone, internet, all stacked up like a cruel countdown. I had always been careful with money, always planned ahead, yet here I was, wondering how I was going to scrape together enough to make ends meet. It wasn't just about surviving. I needed a way to pay the bills without telling anyone I was desperate, especially Isabella. Isabella. Just thinking about her made my chest tighten. My girlfriend wasn't just someone I loved. She was the kind of woman who had her life perfectly together, who never seemed to make mistakes. And then there was me, juggling two lives, one that Isabella knew, and a secret one that was quietly growing inside me. My secret wasn't something I had chosen lightly. Crossdressing had always been a private fascination, a quiet thrill I kept locked behind the bathroom door and the soft folds of my closet. But lately, it had become more than just a hobby. It had become a lifeline. I was 26, working a tedious office job that left me drained and unfulfilled, but reliable enough to pay most of my bills. Reliable, yes, but not enough to cover the sudden spike in expenses that life had thrown my way. My office was a sea of gray cubicles, where coffee machines sputtered and printers jammed like clockwork, and my coworkers never looked twice at the guy who quietly answered emails and avoided conflict. That was me.
Boring.
Predictable. Safe. But at home, behind closed doors, I became someone else entirely, a version of myself that was brighter, bolder, and yes, more daring. I remembered the first time I had slipped into a woman's dress, tentatively and nervously, standing in front of the mirror with shaking hands. The silky fabric sliding over my skin, the subtle sway of a skirt, the unfamiliar yet thrilling click of heels on the hardwood floor, it had awakened something inside me that I couldn't ignore. There was a moment of shame, yes, but overshadowing it was excitement, a dangerous thrill that made my heart race and my pulse spike. I had never told anyone, not even Isabella, because I wasn't sure she would understand. Some parts of me were still private, intimate corners of my identity I wasn't ready to share. And yet, here I was staring at the bills and realizing that maybe, just maybe, that secret could save me. I had seen an online ad for a high-paying fashion gig, a temporary one-night opportunity to model dresses for a boutique launch. It wasn't much, but it was enough to cover the bills. The catch? It required someone to present as a woman, elegantly dressed, with confidence. My heart had skipped a beat when I read it, knowing immediately that this was my chance to finally blend my secret desire with something practical. The apartment was quiet except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Isabella was out running errands, her high heels clicking softly against the pavement somewhere down the street. I had a small window, just a few hours, to prepare myself. My hands trembled as I opened my wardrobe, revealing the carefully selected pieces I had accumulated over the months. There were dresses in every shade, skirts that whispered when I walked, and heels that made my legs feel impossibly long. Each item carried a memory, a secret thrill, a piece of the person I became only in the solitude of my own space. I picked up a deep emerald dress, its fabric flowing like liquid as I held it against me. The thought of sliding into it made a shiver run down my spine. My reflection in the mirror looked back at me, a man on the surface, but someone else lurking underneath, ready to emerge. There was a quiet panic, too. What if this went wrong? What if Isabella came home early? Or what if someone recognized me at the boutique? But the fear was intertwined with excitement, and for the first time in weeks, I felt alive. Makeup sat on the counter like a silent ally. Lipstick, foundation, mascara. Tools of transformation that could hide, reveal, and reinvent simultaneously. My hands were steady as I began, the motions practiced yet intimate, as if the very act of touching my face with these tools gave me permission to exist differently for a few hours. I contoured my cheekbones, carefully applied eyeliner, and chose a soft shade of pink for my lips, each brushstroke a quiet affirmation that tonight I would step into a life I had only dared dream of.
Heels.
My favorite part. The moment I slipped my feet into the elegant stilettos, the world seemed to tilt slightly. I teetered at first, uncertain, but then found a rhythm, a sway that felt natural, powerful, and intoxicating all at once. The dress hugged my body, the heels lifted my posture, and suddenly, the bills and my mundane life felt like a distant worry. For a moment, I was just me. But reality wasn't far behind. I checked my phone. Isabella still had an hour left before she would be home. Plenty of time, but not enough for mistakes. My mind raced with questions. Could I really do this? Could I present myself as someone else for a room full of strangers, as both a disguise and a revelation? The thrill was tempered with fear, each heartbeat a reminder that exposure was a possibility, that one misstep could unravel the carefully balanced secrecy I had maintained for years. Yet even as the anxiety swirled, I felt a strange kind of clarity. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about bills. It was about embracing the part of me that had always been hidden, about stepping into a world that seemed forbidden yet irresistible. The emerald dress shimmered under the soft light, and for a brief, electric moment, I didn't see myself as a man or a woman. I just saw someone ready to take a risk, someone willing to let the world see a side of me that had long been confined to shadows. I glanced at the clock, 30 minutes to departure. Heart racing, I adjusted the hem of the dress one last time and took a deep breath. Tonight, everything would change. Would it be the start of freedom, or the beginning of chaos? I didn't know yet. All I knew was that once I stepped out that door, there would be no turning back. And somehow, that thought thrilled me more than it terrified me. The boutique's private dressing room smelled faintly of perfume and polished wood. Soft, golden light spilled from ornate sconces, casting a glow on the silk garments hanging neatly on racks. I stood in the center, emerald dress in hand, feeling both exposed and electrified. The mirror in front of me reflected a version of myself I barely recognized, a stranger, and yet intimately familiar. Every inch of fabric that clung to my body seemed to whisper promises I wasn't ready to confront. I ran my fingers over the hem, the silky smoothness sending a shiver up my spine. This wasn't just about wearing a dress anymore. This was stepping into someone else entirely, someone elegant, poised, and completely convincing. The heels waiting on the floor seemed taller than usual, daring me to accept the challenge. My heart raced, and a small thrill of panic shot through me. What if I faltered? What if someone opened the door unexpectedly and saw me like this? The boutique staff had given me a brief rundown, just 1 hour to model the new arrivals for an upcoming launch event. They didn't know my secret. They didn't need to. All they saw was a confident model ready to showcase their dresses. But inside, I was a storm of nerves and excitement. The adrenaline surged as I imagined stepping out of the dressing room, walking confidently through the boutique, and striking poses that would impress everyone. I touched up my makeup in the mirror. Foundation to hide any trace of the day before, eyeliner to sharpen my eyes, lipstick a soft rose shade that made my lips fuller, more inviting. Each stroke was deliberate, meditative, and terrifying. The reflection staring back was not just a cross-dressed version of me. It was her, someone I had only glimpsed in the privacy of my fantasies. Now, she was real, at least for tonight. The emerald dress slipped over my shoulders, hugging my curves in ways that made my pulse quicken. I adjusted the straps, feeling the weight of the fabric, the sway that would follow every step. My toes slid into the heels, the first tentative steps causing a wobble, a momentary panic that quickly gave way to a thrilling rhythm. The sound of my heels clicking against the boutique's polished floor was intoxicating, echoing like a drumbeat that seemed to sync with my heartbeat. From a corner of the room, I could hear faint voices, other models preparing for fittings, staff bustling about, music playing softly through hidden speakers. The world outside the dressing room felt distant, but the tension in this small, elegant space was suffocating. Every second I spent here was a gamble. One wrong move, one misplaced step, and my secret could unravel. Yet, with that fear came exhilaration. I was alive in a way I hadn't been for months. I took a deep breath, imagining the first moment I would step into the main area. Strangers would look, eyes would linger, and for the first time, I would be seen. Not as the man I appeared to be, not as the hidden version of myself, but as someone entirely new, a persona crafted from desire, courage, and necessity. The boutique's mirrors reflected the potential, the possibility that tonight I could not only pay the bills, but also explore a side of myself I had long suppressed. A knock at the door startled me. 5 minutes, sweetie, a cheerful voice called. It was the event coordinator, reminding me the session would start soon. My stomach fluttered. Time to leave the safety of the dressing room and face the challenge outside, where everyone's gaze could betray me. My pulse quickened, but so did my confidence. I had practiced this, rehearsed the movements, the poses, the subtle sway of the hips. Still, knowing others would watch made the thrill sharp, almost dangerous. I glanced one last time in the mirror. The emerald fabric clung perfectly, the heels elongated my posture, the curls of my wig framed my face elegantly. I touched my lips, inhaled deeply, and whispered, "You can do this." There was fear, yes, but it was laced with desire, with curiosity, with the raw, intoxicating thrill of transformation. Tonight wasn't just about money, it was about claiming a piece of myself hidden for too long. The door opened. The coordinator smiled warmly, unaware of the storm inside me. "Ready?" she asked. I nodded, forcing the calm I didn't entirely feel. With one careful step forward, the dress swaying, heels clicking, I left the dressing room. The main boutique awaited, full of lights, racks, and curious eyes. And for the first time, I wasn't just a man in a dress. I was someone unforgettable. Stepping out from the dressing room, the boutique felt like a completely different world. Rows of sparkling dresses hung like jewels, mannequins posed in mid-stride, and the soft chatter of other models and staff created a hum that made my heart race. Every glance toward me sent a shiver through my body. Some were polite, professional, unaware, but others lingered just a second too long, curiosity glinting in their eyes. I adjusted the hem of the emerald dress and forced a slow, measured step forward, letting the heels click deliberately on the polished floor. I was acutely aware of every inch of myself, the sway of my hips, the tension in my shoulders, the subtle tremble in my hands. My reflection in the boutique's tall mirrors followed me as I walked, and each time, I caught a glimpse of someone I barely recognized. I looked confident, elegant, and yet entirely vulnerable. Vulnerable because I was performing a role I had never dared to show publicly. Vulnerable because any misstep could expose me, unravel the careful persona I had built in secret. A stylist approached, clipboard in hand, her heels clicking almost as loudly as mine. "Ready for your first look?" she asked with a smile. My voice caught slightly as I nodded, forcing the composure that wasn't entirely there. She gestured toward a small runway set up near the boutique windows, the morning sunlight spilling across the floor. My stomach fluttered. This wasn't a private dressing room anymore. It was a stage. Everyone's eyes would be on me, whether I wanted it or not. The first outfit change came quickly. A soft lavender dress with delicate lace, paired with matching heels. I slipped into it, feeling the fabric glide over my skin. Every brush of lace, every adjustment of straps sent a spark of awareness through me. This was more than clothing. It was a transformation, an armor of elegance that concealed the anxiety beneath. I practiced my poses silently in the mirror, holding my gaze with a confidence I hoped read as natural. As I stepped onto the small runway, the staff's eyes followed my every move. I could feel their silent scrutiny, the subtle nods of approval, the curious glances that lingered a little too long. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. Each step, each sway of my hips, became a test. Could I maintain control? Could I carry the persona convincingly? Could I survive being seen? My hands itched to adjust the wig, the dress, anything to make it feel real, but I forced them to remain at my sides, a poised model hiding a storm of nerves beneath the surface. Then it happened. One of the boutique's regular clients entered unexpectedly, a woman I recognized from my neighborhood. My pulse spiked. She hadn't expected to see me like this. My mind raced with panic. Do I act natural? Do I freeze? Do I run? The thrill and fear collided, making my chest tighten. I forced a polite smile, letting my eyes meet hers briefly. The moment stretched, seconds feeling like hours, and then she turned away, distracted by the racks of dresses. I exhaled slowly, trying to convince myself I had passed the test unscathed. But the incident left a lingering tension. Every reflection in the boutique now seemed to accuse me of being exposed. Every movement felt heavier, charged with possibility. The stylist guided me through poses for photos, and I could feel the camera's lens like a silent observer of my secret self. Each flash of light illuminated my features, every click of the camera a reminder that I was being recorded in this version of myself, someone elegant, feminine, confident, and yet entirely fabricated. The next outfit was more daring. A deep burgundy sheath dress that hugged every curve, paired with heels that made my legs feel impossibly long. I took a moment in the mirror, running my fingers along the fabric, adjusting the neckline slightly. My reflection stared back, eyes sharp, lips slightly parted in a poised expression that contrasted sharply with a nervous quiver in my stomach. This was no longer just practice, it was performance. And performance carried risk. I moved back to the makeshift runway, heart hammering, and tried to focus on the mechanics. Step, pose, turn, smile. But beneath it all was a whisper of fear. What if someone I knew came in unexpectedly? Someone who could recognize me? What if Isabella returned early or called to check in, and somehow I faltered? The tension wrapped around me like the dress itself, tight, unyielding, almost tangible. Still, amidst the fear, there was exhilaration. My body felt alive in ways it rarely did. Every sway, every brush of fabric, every click of heels against polished floorboard became a signal that I was existing outside my usual boundaries. I was no longer just a man paying bills and hiding secrets. I was someone else entirely. Vulnerable, yes, but powerful in ways I hadn't imagined. By the third outfit, a soft pink cocktail dress with delicate straps, I was beginning to find a rhythm. The initial panic had faded into a tense excitement, an awareness of the stakes and a thrill in the challenge. Each pose was deliberate, each step measured, each smile calculated to convey poise. The staff complimented me repeatedly, unaware of the internal drama playing out behind the serene exterior. Their praise was intoxicating, making the adrenaline spike further. And yet, the fear never left entirely. Every mirror, every lens, every passing glance held the potential to expose me. The internal struggle raged, exhilaration versus fear, secrecy versus desire, vulnerability versus performance. I realized that tonight wasn't just about modeling dresses. It was about testing myself, about navigating the thin line between who I was and who I wanted to be, all while under the gaze of strangers who had no idea of the duality I carried. By the time the fourth outfit came, a sleek black mini dress paired with strappy heels, I was trembling slightly, not from fatigue, but from the tension of balancing fear and exhilaration. Each movement felt electrified, every heartbeat a drumbeat of suspense. This was the point where fantasy met reality, where the thrill of crossdressing merged with the peril of exposure, and I realized I was hooked. Not just for the money, not just for the bills, but for the raw, unfiltered experience of stepping into someone else entirely and surviving it. The boutique felt smaller now, though it hadn't physically changed. Every reflective surface, every shadowed corner seemed sharper, more threatening. My pulse was still racing from the encounter with a familiar client, and my hands trembled slightly as I adjusted the straps of the latest outfit, a midnight blue cocktail dress that shimmered under the boutique's soft lights. It was sleek, elegant, and daring, and for the first time tonight, I felt like the persona I had been building was not just plausible, it was magnetic. Then, a sharp voice broke through my haze of concentration. "Excuse me, are you the new model?" I froze, heels clicking against the polished floor, every muscle tense. A woman I didn't recognize stepped into the boutique, clipboard in hand, eyes narrowed with curiosity. She was obviously part of the boutique staff, or so I assumed, but there was something in her expression that set off alarms in my chest. I gave a polite nod, forcing a smile that probably looked overly rehearsed. "Yes, that's me," I replied, voice steadier than I felt. She walked closer, scanning me from head to toe. "You look different than what I expected," she said, her gaze flicking over the dress, the heels, even the subtle wig curls framing my face. There was no accusation in her tone, just a sharp curiosity, but it sent my nerves spiraling. Was I failing to convince her? Did she suspect something? My mind raced with worst-case scenarios, each one more absurd and terrifying than the last. "Different in a good way," she added quickly, almost apologetically. That helped calm me slightly, but only just. I knew that this was a test. A fleeting, invisible trial where every step, every gesture, every smile counted. If I stumbled, if my hands trembled too much, if my posture faltered, the carefully constructed illusion could collapse. I returned to the runway area, forcing my shoulders back and taking a deep breath. The heels felt heavier now, but the rhythm of my steps gave me some confidence. I had practiced this, yes, but nothing in my life had prepared me for this. The way strangers' eyes could weigh on you like invisible hands, the way every reflection seemed accusatory, reminding me of the secret I was hiding beneath the polished exterior. The stylist called out for another pose, this time with a dramatic turn. I twisted at the waist, feeling the shimmer of the dress ripple with motion. My heart skipped as I caught the reflection of the new staff member watching intently. I forced myself to smile, to pose naturally, to breathe and hold the posture. But the anxiety didn't fade. It only layered itself with a new element, self-consciousness magnified by an unfamiliar observer whose judgment I couldn't anticipate. Minutes stretched into long, tense intervals. My internal dialogue was a storm. Stay calm. They don't know. Just act natural. Don't stumble. Don't let them see. I felt the sweat prickling at the back of my neck, the subtle tremor in my fingers. The heels were no longer just stylish. They were a test of balance, a challenge of endurance. Every step forward was a negotiation between fear and exhilaration. Then came the twist, a knock on the boutique door that sounded louder than any other before. My stomach dropped. The stylist called out, "Just a moment," but the voice outside was unmistakably familiar. My heart froze. "Hey, I thought I'd drop by early to see how things are going." It was Isabella. My mind went blank, panic surging like electricity through my veins. She shouldn't be here yet. She said she would be out for another hour. And yet, here she was, cheerful and unsuspecting, about to walk into a room where I had shed my usual identity completely. I swallowed hard, gripping the edge of the runway to steady myself. The heels seemed suddenly taller, the dress tighter, the wig heavier on my head. Every nerve ending was alive with fear. I had only a few seconds to decide. Turn around, hide, or confront the impossible. My feet trembled. My reflection in the nearby mirror seemed to mock me, showing the duality I had spent so long perfecting. The emerald dress, or was it the lavender or burgundy now, clung perfectly, every curve accentuated, and I felt the strange thrill of exposure tickling at the edge of panic. The stylist, oblivious to the looming danger, was instructing me on another pose. I nodded mechanically, trying to force myself to move, to perform, to stay calm. But the sound of Isabella's voice, so familiar, so full of warmth, was a constant, terrifying reminder that my secret, my carefully crafted persona, could collapse in an instant. My mind raced, plotting escape routes, rehearsing lies, imagining excuses that might work. Could I pretend I was just trying on clothes for fun? Could I act like a friend of the boutique staff? Each scenario felt plausible and impossible all at once. And beneath it all, there was a pulse of adrenaline that mingled with a secret thrill, because no matter the danger, I wanted to be seen like this. I took a step forward, heels clicking, forcing the motion, forcing the poise. Isabella stepped closer, her eyes widening slightly as she took in my full transformation. My pulse jumped. Was she suspicious? Was she judging? Or was this fascination I saw in her eyes? The moment stretched, tense and electric. Every second felt like an eternity. I realized then that tonight wasn't just about modeling dresses or paying bills or even cross-dressing. It was about risk. Risk of exposure, risk of judgment, risk of being caught, but also risk of discovery, of feeling something raw and powerful in the presence of someone I loved. I could freeze, hide, and retreat, but that would mean denying myself the thrill, the self-expression, the possibility of being truly seen. And yet, I was frozen in that space between fear and exhilaration, wondering if a single misstep could undo everything. The heels seemed impossibly high, the dress impossibly tight, and the room impossibly small. Every reflection, every shadow, every glance was magnified into an interrogation. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The world had contracted to this one moment, this one intersection of identity, desire, and danger. I swallowed, forcing a smile, and tried to step closer to Isabella, rehearsing words that might save me or ruin me. The tension was suffocating, yet intoxicating. I was teetering on the edge of exposure, caught between who I was, who I wanted to be, and who she might see in that instant. The boutique, the lights, the heels, the dress, they all disappeared into a haze of fear and excitement, leaving only one truth. Tonight, everything was on the line. The Grand Hotel ballroom was buzzing with activity. Soft classical music floated through the air, mingling with the murmur of well-dressed guests, champagne glasses clinking, and the faint scratch of heels against marble floors. I stood near a mirrored pillar, emerald dress shimmering under the chandeliers, clutching my small purse tightly. This was no longer a controlled boutique environment. Here, the stakes were higher. Any slip could expose me. Every glance from a stranger could unravel the careful persona I had created. I felt exposed in a way I hadn't yet tonight. The heels elevated me, sure, but the unfamiliar faces around me made me acutely aware of every movement. I adjusted the strap of the dress, feeling the silky fabric press against my skin, and ran my hand lightly over my wig to keep the curls in place. Each detail mattered. One wrong gesture, a wobble in the heels, a misstep in posture, and the illusion could collapse entirely. A group of elegantly dressed women passed by, chatting and laughing. Their confidence made my nerves spike. I could feel my pulse in my throat, my stomach fluttering. I tried to steady my breathing, imagining myself as part of this world, part of this glamorous scene. For months, I had fantasized about moments like this, but now, surrounded by real people, it felt different. Scary. Exciting. Terrifying. A man in a crisp tuxedo approached, offering a polite bow. "You must be the model for the showcase tonight," he said, a smile in his eyes. My pulse quickened. I nodded, forcing a calm tone. "Yes, that's me." My mind raced, calculating every nuance of my response, every expression on my face. Could he tell? Could anyone tell? The room felt simultaneously vast and claustrophobic, the polished marble and glittering lights highlighting my every flaw, or so I feared. I took a cautious step forward, testing the rhythm of the heels on the marble. They were unforgiving here. No soft carpet to hide my missteps, no quiet dressing room walls to buffer the suspense. Every sound was amplified, every glance magnified. I felt like an actor on a stage, and the audience was a room full of critics who knew nothing of the secret life I carried. Then, a waiter approached with a tray of champagne flutes. My fingers trembled slightly as I reached for one, adjusting the glass in a way that concealed my shaking hands. The cold crystal against my palm sent a jolt through me, a physical reminder of my vulnerability. I sipped lightly, trying to appear relaxed, scanning the room for familiar faces. None of my friends or acquaintances were here, thankfully, but that only amplified the anxiety. I was alone in this performance, entirely exposed to scrutiny. From across the hall, I noticed a photographer snapping pictures of the arriving guests. My stomach lurched. Was I going to be photographed in full dress, my wig perfectly in place, my secret persona on display for the world, or at least the gala's social media coverage. I shifted slightly, letting my body angle subtly away from the cameras, but every step felt precarious. The dress clung tighter now with each movement, the heels demanding careful balance, and I realized that even a simple turn could betray me. A group of women stopped nearby, discussing the latest fashion trends. Their laughter was light, but sharp enough to cut through my nerves. I tried to smile naturally, to let my body language convey ease, but inside, every nerve was taut. The thrill of crossdressing had become a double-edged sword, exhilarating because I had embraced this hidden self, terrifying because one false move could expose it completely. I caught my reflection in the polished elevator doors across the hall. The emerald dress sparkled, the heels elongated my legs perfectly, the wig framed my face elegantly, but it wasn't just a costume anymore. This was a persona I had brought into the real world, in front of real people, and the stakes felt impossibly high. A ripple of fear ran through me. What if someone recognized me? What if someone from my normal life, someone who knew me as I truly was, walked in right now? Trying to steady myself, I moved toward a quiet corner where a decorative fountain glimmered in the low light. I practiced my posture, adjusting the sway of my hips, holding my chin slightly lifted. Every muscle in my body was conscious, every movement deliberate. The adrenaline coursing through me sharpened my senses, hearing the faint echo of heels, seeing reflections in polished surfaces, feeling the tension in every fiber of my being. The gala's host appeared nearby, speaking to guests and photographers. I realized with a jolt that I might be called to pose or mingle. The thought made my palms sweat. Yet beneath the fear was a spark of excitement. I had never felt this alive, fully visible, fully vulnerable, yet fully myself in a way I had never been before. I realized that part of the thrill was risk. The possibility of exposure made the transformation feel real, raw, and undeniable. And then I felt it, the unmistakable twinge of doubt and fear mingling with exhilaration. I was walking a tightrope, balancing who I was with who I was pretending to be, and every step could tip me over. Yet, I could not deny the power in this moment, the intoxicating awareness that I had created someone unforgettable. The emerald dress shimmered under the chandelier light, heels clicking in perfect rhythm, and I realized that tonight, I wasn't just paying bills, I was confronting the most daring, vulnerable side of myself. The rooftop terrace of the hotel overlooked the city skyline, glittering lights stretching into the distance. I had slipped away from the crowd for a moment of reprieve, clutching my small purse, heels clicking softly on the stone tiles. The wind tugged at the edge of the emerald dress, making it sway like liquid silk, and I shivered, not from the cold, but from the weight of everything I had carried into this night. For the first time, away from the prying eyes and reflective mirrors, I allowed myself a moment to breathe. My reflection in the terrace glass seemed almost surreal, a stranger staring back, wearing the identity I had created. The exhilaration of stepping into someone entirely new mingled with the fear of exposure, forming a tension that made every heartbeat feel like it could split me in two. I ran my fingers along the fabric of the dress, feeling every seam, every contour. It wasn't just clothing anymore, it was armor and trap all at once. Armor because it gave me the elegance, poise, and confidence I rarely possessed. Trap because each step, each sway, each movement reminded me of how exposed I truly was. In these moments, the secret I had carried for months felt impossibly fragile. From the far end of the terrace, I saw movement, a hotel staff member carrying a tray of drinks. I froze, my mind racing. What if they recognized me? What if they mentioned something to someone else inside? Every muscle tensed as I practiced a casual smile, forcing my body to relax, letting the persona carry me through this test. My hands gripped the edge of the railing lightly, feeling the cool stone beneath my fingers, anchoring me to the reality of this moment. Then, from behind, a familiar voice cut through the wind. "Hey, there you are." My heart stuttered. I turned slowly, and there she was. Isabella. She had followed me, unnoticed, and now the distance between us had collapsed. My breath caught in my throat. The persona I had built, the elegance, the confidence, the secret version of myself. I was not ready to show her yet. And yet, here she was, calm, smiling, and completely unaware of the storm I had navigated to get here. "I thought I'd find you outside," she said, tilting her head slightly, her gaze lingering. There was no judgment in her tone, only curiosity, but curiosity carried weight. Every second stretched as I struggled to maintain composure. I adjusted the hem of the dress, the sway of my hips, the tilt of my head. Every movement mattered, and every movement could betray me. I forced myself to speak. "Just taking a break," I said, voice steadier than I felt. My pulse thundered, each beat echoing in my ears like a warning. The emerald dress shimmered under the terrace lights. The heels elevated me taller than my usual self, and my wig framed my face perfectly. But the persona was fragile. One misstep, one slip of the tongue, and everything could unravel. She stepped closer, eyes scanning my expression. "You look amazing," she said softly. My chest tightened at the compliment, a mixture of relief and panic washing over me. Relief because she didn't suspect, panic because the compliment was a double-edged sword. Her admiration reinforced the secret I had cultivated, making me crave her approval while simultaneously fearing her discovery. I looked down at the city lights stretching endlessly below, feeling the thrill of this forbidden moment. The rooftop was a stage, the heels a test of balance, the dress a cloak of confidence. I realized then that this wasn't just about paying bills or surviving the gala. It was about confronting the raw, unfiltered version of myself. Every fear, every exhilaration, every heartbeat was amplified here, in the open air, away from the safety of mirrors and dressing rooms. The wind tugged again at the dress, and I felt a symbolic tremor, like the fabric itself was reminding me of the fragility of my secret. I adjusted the neckline, smoothed the wig, and forced a calm breath. The adrenaline had settled slightly, replaced with a simmering tension that I knew would only rise once I returned to the crowd. Isabella's presence loomed like both a safety net and a danger, a mirror reflecting the duality of desire and fear, exposure and secrecy. For a brief moment, I allowed myself a thought I had never admitted. Maybe I wanted to be caught. The idea shocked me, yet it lingered, subtle and persistent. To reveal this side of myself, to allow someone I cared about to see me fully transformed, was terrifying, but it was also liberating. The thrill of the secret was intoxicating, but so was the possibility of validation, of recognition, of being understood. But reality intruded immediately. The distant music, the chatter of the gala below, the faint click of heels approaching, all reminders that the world outside this terrace didn't pause for my inner turmoil. My persona, my elegance, my confidence, all were temporary, fragile constructs. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the return. The heels clicked sharply as I adjusted my stance, and the emerald dress swayed like liquid silk. This rooftop moment had crystallized everything: the thrill, the fear, the exhilaration, the vulnerability. I was fully immersed in a dual identity, walking the line between who I was and who I wanted to be. Every heartbeat, every glance, every step carried the weight of a secret I had fought to protect. And as I looked at Isabella, smiling softly yet unknowingly, I realized that the tension wasn't just about being seen. It was about being truly known. The moment stretched, fragile as crystal, as I prepared to step back into the ballroom. The stakes had never been higher, the risk never greater, and the thrill never more intoxicating. Tonight, everything could change. And I knew, deep in my bones, that I was ready to embrace it, whatever the consequences might be. The gala had reached its peak. Crystal chandeliers sparkled above, reflecting in polished marble floors, and the chatter of guests mingled with soft music and the clinking of champagne glasses. I stood near a grand staircase, emerald dress hugging my curves perfectly, heels adding an extra edge to my posture. Every glance felt loaded, every stranger's eyes a potential threat. But then, as if on cue, The tension I had been building for hours erupted. A hand landed gently on my shoulder. My chest jumped. Slowly turning, I came face to face with a figure I didn't expect, a rival from work, someone who had always been perceptive, sharp-eyed, and intimidating. Her eyes widened for just a fraction of a second, scanning me head to toe. My heartbeat thundered as I froze in place, the heels beneath me suddenly feeling precarious. "You look different," she said, tilting her head with a half-smile that made my stomach twist. Her tone was curious, teasing, but underneath, there was a sharpness that made me want to vanish. I forced a calm smile, adjusting the strap of my dress, trying to appear casual. But every movement was deliberate. I could feel the sweat prickling at the back of my neck. "I thank you," I said carefully, my voice steadier than I felt. Every word carried weight, every syllable a delicate balance between charm and concealment. The emerald dress clung to me in ways I had rehearsed countless times in mirrors, but the thrill of danger now added a new dimension, one part fear, one part exhilaration. Her gaze lingered for a moment, scanning my posture, the curve of my hips, the tilt of my chin. The adrenaline surged, mixing panic with a strange, intoxicating excitement. Could she tell? Would she know? My mind raced through possibilities, each scenario more terrifying than the last. Yet, there was also a pulse of daring, because the longer I remained poised under her scrutiny, the more confident I felt. Then came a whisper from the other side of the room. "Isabella." She had returned unexpectedly, her heels clicking softly against the marble. My stomach dropped. The two of them were converging, my rival's curiosity and Isabella's admiration, while I balanced on the edge of exposure. My palms were clammy, and I could feel the tightness in my chest as I forced a graceful turn, letting the fabric of the dress sway naturally. "Everything okay?" Isabella's voice was calm, yet there was a subtle undertone of suspicion, a hint that she sensed something, but not enough to fully grasp the secret. My mind screamed, "Don't move too fast. Don't give anything away." I nodded, forcing a smile, and took a careful step back toward the buffet table, heels clicking in rhythm with my heartbeat. The rival followed, her curiosity undeterred. I could feel the tension wrapping around me like a second skin. Every muscle was alert, every sense heightened. This wasn't just crossdressing anymore. It was a high-stakes performance, a test of nerves, of poise, and of secrecy. Suddenly, a small commotion near the entrance caught everyone's attention. A guest had tripped, glasses shattering against the floor. Gasps erupted, and the room's focus shifted for just a moment. But in that moment, I faltered. My heel caught on the hem of the dress, and I stumbled slightly. A spike of panic shot through me, but I managed to catch myself against the edge of the buffet table. Heart racing, I forced a laugh, pretending it was part of the movement. The rival's eyes narrowed, catching the slight wobble. Her curiosity intensified. Isabella's gaze followed mine, noting the tension but mistaking it for elegance under pressure. I exhaled slowly, forcing composure. The emerald dress shimmered under the chandelier light, heels perfectly aligned, but inside, my mind was a whirlwind of fear, exhilaration, and the thrill of secrecy. Then another twist. A photographer approached rapidly, camera ready, pointing straight at me. My pulse spiked. I had no time to escape. The flash went off, illuminating every detail. The dress, the heels, the wig, the full transformation. My heart pounded in my chest as the camera clicked repeatedly, capturing my dual identity for all to see. I felt a rush of vulnerability mixed with the undeniable thrill of being recognized, yet not truly seen in the way I feared. Isabella stepped closer, her gaze catching mine as the photographer clicked one final time. My pulse thundered. Was she seeing me as I truly was, or just the glamorous version of myself I had constructed? The rival's curiosity remained, her expression unreadable, as if she sensed something was off but couldn't pinpoint it. I realized that this moment, this precarious, electric, heart-stopping instant, was the pinnacle of risk and reward. Every step forward became a negotiation, maintain poise or risk exposure. Every glance from Isabella or the rival threatened to unravel the persona I had fought to uphold. And yet, with the risk came exhilaration. I had crossed a line I hadn't dared before, balancing on the knife edge of identity, fear, and desire. The thrill was almost unbearable, a heady mix of adrenaline, vulnerability, and forbidden excitement. I could feel the tension building to an inevitable breaking point. One wrong move, one misstep in heels, one flicker of expression, and the secret could be revealed in an instant. My heart hammered, sweat prickled my skin, and yet, beneath the panic, there was a pulse of confidence, the realization that I had survived every previous challenge, every near discovery, every whispered fear. And tonight, I would either emerge triumphant or be exposed entirely. The emerald dress clung perfectly, the heels elongated every step, and my reflection in a nearby mirrored wall showed a poised, elegant figure. Yet I knew the truth beneath. The duality of identity, the thrill of secrecy, the vulnerability of exposure, it all came together here, in this high-stakes, electric moment. And as Isabella and the rival lingered near me, every heartbeat felt amplified, every breath suspended, every second charged with the possibility of revelation, judgment, or admiration. The night teetered on a knife's edge. And in that suspended, heart-pounding instant, I realized nothing would ever be the same again. The flash of the photographer's camera still burned behind my eyelids, a bright reminder of how exposed I had just been. My heels clicked sharply on the marble as I tried to steady my trembling hands, adjusting the hem of the emerald dress. The thrill I had felt earlier had transformed into pure panic. Every guest now seemed a potential observer, every glance a possible threat. I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, electric and unrelenting. Then, without warning, the rival stepped closer, lowering her voice into a teasing, almost dangerous whisper. "You're hiding something, aren't you?" Her eyes sparkled with curiosity, but there was an edge to them. Sharp, probing, as if she could see through the polished exterior I had worked so hard to maintain. My heart skipped a beat. Could she truly sense it? Had my careful performance been too transparent? I don't know what you mean, I replied, forcing a casual smile, though my chest pounded so hard I thought she might hear it. The emerald dress felt heavier now, the fabric suffocating me with its tight elegance. My fingers clenched the clutch bag as if it were a lifeline. The heels beneath me felt suddenly unforgiving, every step a precarious negotiation between poise and collapse. From the corner of my eye, I caught Isabella approaching, her gaze flicking between me and my rival. My pulse spiked. The mixture of curiosity, admiration, and subtle suspicion in her expression threatened to unmask everything I had hidden. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to straighten my posture, letting the persona carry me forward despite the storm raging beneath the surface. And then the twist. A loud gasp erupted from the far side of the ballroom. I turned sharply, hard in my throat, and saw someone I had not expected, my closest friend from work. He stood there, frozen in shock, eyes wide, scanning me from head to toe. My stomach sank, the heels suddenly unbearable beneath me. He had come to attend the gala for networking, unaware of my transformation, and now he had walked right into it. I tried to force a casual smile, to blend the fear and exhilaration into a single, smooth gesture. "Hi. I didn't expect to see you here," I said, voice trembling slightly. But the words felt hollow, failing to mask the storm of panic swirling inside. My rival's eyes widened, then narrowed with keen interest. Isabella stopped, taking a cautious step closer. The room seemed to shrink, every gaze now magnified, every heartbeat deafening. My secret, my carefully crafted identity, was on the brink of exposure, and the thrill of being fully seen was now inseparable from the terror of being discovered. I took a slow, deliberate step back, feeling the fabric of the dress brush against my thighs. The heels were a tightrope beneath me, the marble floor unforgiving. Every motion had to be perfect, every gesture calculated, every breath measured. One wrong move could reveal everything, not just my cross-dressing, but the fragile confidence I had built over weeks of secret preparation. "You look different," my friend finally managed, his voice a mixture of awe and disbelief. His eyes scanned every detail, the curve of the dress, the shimmer of the fabric, the subtle contouring of my makeup. My chest tightened. This wasn't just admiration, it was recognition. And recognition carried the weight of truth. I forced myself to laugh lightly, brushing off the compliment as casually as possible. "Just trying something new?" I said. But the words felt like fragile glass, likely to shatter at any moment. Isabella's gaze softened, a smile tugging at her lips, though there was a flicker of confusion there. My rival smirked knowingly, her curiosity turning into a challenge. She took a small step closer, whispering in a tone that carried across the small distance between us. "Careful. Secrets like this, they don't stay hidden forever." Panic surged anew. My mind raced through escape plans, lies, and excuses, but none seemed adequate. The adrenaline was overwhelming, the thrill sharp and intoxicating, and yet beneath it all, a raw vulnerability pulsed, exposed in heels, dress, wig, and makeup, facing three people who could unravel the entire illusion. I felt my fingers trembling against the clutch. The emerald dress seemed to weigh me down, every movement a calculated act of survival. One false gesture, one slip of the heel, one flicker of expression, and everything could collapse. Yet, amid the fear, there was an undeniable exhilaration. I had never felt so alive, so fully myself, yet so on the edge of disaster. And then the unexpected happened. My friend, still staring, stepped closer, eyes wide but softening. "You look incredible," he whispered, a tone of admiration laced with disbelief. Relief and terror collided in my chest. He didn't accuse. He didn't mock. But the sheer intensity of recognition, the proximity of truth, made every heartbeat feel like it could fracture. Isabella, sensing the tension, placed a gentle hand near my arm. Her eyes met mine, full of warmth, and yet there was that subtle hint of suspicion, an unspoken question hanging between us. I realized then that this moment, fraught with exposure, fear, admiration, and thrill, was the pinnacle of everything I had been building toward. The secret, the transformation, the hidden persona, they were all teetering on the knife's edge of discovery. And as the lights of the ballroom reflected in the polished floor, highlighting the shimmer of the dress, the sparkle of the heels, and the delicate curls of the wig, I understood one undeniable truth. Tonight, everything had changed. The risk had reached its peak. The thrill of being fully visible, fully exposed, and yet partially understood, was intoxicating. And I was caught in the heart-stopping, dizzying tension of it all, teetering between fear and exhilaration, secrecy and revelation, vulnerability and power. The ballroom felt smaller now, walls closing in as the three figures, the rival, Isabella, and my friend, stood around me. The shimmer of the emerald dress seemed almost surreal under the chandeliers, each reflection magnifying my anxiety. My heels, once symbols of poise, now felt like precarious stilts, threatening to betray me with every step. I could feel the tension coiling like a spring inside my chest. "Is this really you?" my friend asked, his voice low but edged with disbelief. Every word landed like a hammer against the fragile persona I had built. The heels beneath me felt heavier, my stomach twisted, and I realized I had no room for error. I couldn't stumble, couldn't fumble, couldn't let my carefully constructed transformation slip in front of these three witnesses. I forced a smile, adjusting the wig carefully, as if to buy myself a moment. "Yes, it's me," I replied, voice trembling slightly despite my efforts to remain poised. The emerald dress clung tightly, outlining every curve, and I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks. This was no longer a controlled experiment, no longer a playful transformation, it was raw exposure. The rival leaned in subtly, her gaze sharp. "You've gone all out," she said, a hint of admiration and a warning entwined in her tone. She circled slowly, inspecting the transformation as if assessing whether I was bluffing. My heart raced, every nerve ending alive with fear and exhilaration. I knew she could sense that the persona wasn't entirely natural, that I was balancing on the edge of panic and confidence. Isabella stepped closer, hand lightly brushing against mine. You look beautiful," she whispered. Her warmth was comforting, yet tinged with curiosity, and the combination sent a shiver down my spine. Admiration from her felt intoxicating, but it also meant that any slip, any sign of deception, could shatter the fragile trust between us. I felt both elated and terrified. My friend, still staring, moved slightly to the side, hesitating as if unsure how to process the sight before him. His gaze flickered between my face, the dress, and the heels, each detail confirming that the person before him was both me and not me. The duality I had carefully maintained, my secret self and the glamorous persona, was now laid bare, and the adrenaline surged. Then, disaster struck. A waiter stumbled nearby, spilling a tray of drinks that sent champagne glasses crashing to the floor. The sudden commotion drew the eyes of nearby guests, some turning toward us. In the momentary distraction, my heel caught on the hem of the dress. I stumbled forward, my balance teetering dangerously. Panic surged in my chest.
Not now.
Not here.
Not in front of them.
Isabella reacted instantly, stepping forward to steady me. Her hands brushed my arms, anchoring me, and for a heartbeat, our eyes met. There was a silent understanding, a mix of fear, excitement, and connection that left me breathless. I realized then that the thrill of the secret, the exhilaration of being fully exposed yet partially hidden, had reached its peak. The rival's smirk widened, sharp and knowing. "Careful," she whispered, circling me like a predator sizing up her prey. "Secrets like this have a way of slipping." Her words carried both challenge and intrigue, amplifying the tension to an almost unbearable degree. I straightened as best I could, forcing composure into every movement. The dress shimmered under the chandelier light, heels clicking deliberately on the polished floor. My fingers clenched the clutch, my palms sweaty, every breath calculated. The weight of exposure pressed down like gravity itself. I was a performer on a stage of my own making, the audience simultaneously threatening and intoxicating. Isabella leaned closer, her voice soft yet filled with an edge of curiosity. "I want to understand everything." My heart raced. Her words were a double-edged sword. They offered acceptance, but also carried the risk of revelation. The thought of sharing my secret, of letting her fully see the person behind the persona, was both terrifying and exhilarating. And then came the final twist. A guest approached the group, smiling brightly. "Is everything okay here?" she asked, unaware of the tension that had enveloped us. Her presence threatened to shatter the delicate balance I had maintained. My heart pounded in my chest. Every instinct screamed to retreat, to hide, to revert to normalcy, but the thrill of being fully visible, fully vulnerable, was intoxicating. I forced a graceful turn, letting the dress sway naturally, using the movement to maintain poise. The heels felt like extensions of my body now, supporting me as I navigated the sudden scrutiny. Every eye in the room was a test, every glance a potential revelation, and yet, amid the panic, I felt a surge of empowerment. I had created this persona, embodied it fully, and now faced the ultimate challenge, to survive exposure with elegance intact. The rival's gaze met mine, sharp and calculating, while Isabella's eyes softened with curiosity and subtle warmth. My friend's expression remained a mix of awe and uncertainty. And I realized then that the climax of the night was not just about being discovered. It was about embracing the duality of who I was, confronting fear and thrill simultaneously, and stepping fully into the transformation I had hidden for so long. The room seemed to pulse with energy, every heartbeat echoing in my chest. I was on the knife's edge, balancing vulnerability and power, secrecy and revelation, fear and exhilaration. And in that suspended moment, the emerald dress clung like a second skin, the heels elevated me, and the wig framed a face that was both mine and not mine. Tonight, everything had shifted. The thrill, the danger, the exposure, they had converged into a moment that would define me, challenge me, and transform me forever. The climax of secrecy, desire, and risk had arrived. The ballroom had turned into a web of stares, whispers, and shuffling feet. Every guest now seemed hyper-aware of the small cluster I occupied, the emerald dress, the delicate heels, the perfectly framed wig, marking me as the center of attention. My heart pounded so hard I feared it might give me away, each beat a drum of danger and exhilaration. Isabella was close now, her eyes scanning my face with warmth and curiosity, yet shadowed with that subtle, unspoken question, "Who are you really?" The thought alone sent shivers down my spine. My rival circled like a hawk, her smirk sharp, predatory, as if she knew exactly how precarious my situation had become. And my friend, frozen in awe, had yet to recover from his initial shock, his wide eyes locked on the transformation before him. I tried to steady my breathing, letting my hands glide naturally along the clutch bag, every movement a delicate dance of composure. The heels beneath me felt like stilts on a tightrope, the floor slick with spilled champagne from the earlier commotion. Every step was a calculated risk, every gesture a statement of poise or a potential reveal. I realized that I was performing on the highest stakes stage of my life, and one misstep could unravel everything. Then, the unexpected happened. A small child ran past the table, chasing after a balloon, and accidentally snagged the hem of my dress with tiny fingers. The fabric tugged sharply, and I stumbled forward, clutching the railing of the staircase for balance. Gasps erupted from nearby guests. My chest tightened, my pulse thundered, and for a moment, the carefully constructed persona threatened to collapse. Isabella reacted instantly, her hands steadying me as she whispered, "I've got you." Her touch was grounding, yet the warmth it brought only intensified my vulnerability. My mind screamed, "Stay composed. Don't let this break you." Every breath was measured, every glance calculated. The heels held me upright, the dress shimmered like liquid, and yet the sensation of exposure was almost unbearable. My rival leaned closer, voice low and teasing. "Careful, or your little secret might slip." Her words pierced through the haze of panic, a reminder that the danger was not only real but imminent. I swallowed hard, forcing a smile, letting the persona radiate confidence even as my chest tightened. Then came the final blow. A photographer, noticing the minor commotion, rushed toward us, camera raised. Flash after flash illuminated the room, reflecting off the emerald fabric, highlighting the contour of the dress and the delicate features of the wig. My heart raced faster than ever, and I realized that everyone around me now had a chance to see not just the glamorous exterior, but the fragile, trembling persona underneath. I felt every eye in the room lock onto me. The guests, the rival, Isabella, and my friend. The sensation was dizzying. I was fully exposed, every detail of my transformation under scrutiny, every secret moment of preparation potentially unraveling in front of them. And yet, beneath the fear, there was a thrill, a heady, intoxicating rush that coursed through me, making me feel alive, bold, and dangerously exhilarated. Isabella's hand remained on my arm, grounding me, while her eyes searched mine, trying to read the emotions I struggled to conceal. The rival's smirk widened, sharp and knowing, while my friend's astonishment lingered, frozen between disbelief and admiration. I realized that I was standing at the pinnacle of tension, the apex of suspense, where fear, desire, and vulnerability collided in a dizzying crescendo. Every muscle in my body tensed, every nerve alive with the potential for disaster. I knew that the next moment could define everything, my secret, my confidence, my relationships. Would I survive this exposure unscathed, or would the delicate web of secrecy unravel completely? Then, just as the photographer clicked one final time, I felt it. The weight of the emerald dress, the tightness of the heels, the wig slightly slipping at the back. The moment demanded a decision. Retreat, risk exposure, or fully embrace the persona I had fought to maintain. My breath caught in my throat. The room seemed to hold its collective breath with me, waiting for my next move. I straightened, lifted my chin, and let the persona shine. The heels clicked with deliberate rhythm, the dress swayed like liquid silk, and the wig framed my face perfectly. In that suspended moment, I embraced the duality of who I was, the secret, the glamorous, the vulnerable, and the bold. I was alive, fully exposed, yet unbroken. But the tension was far from over. From across the room, Isabella's voice cut softly, but firmly. "I want to understand everything." The words were gentle, yet carried weight, the potential for revelation, for intimacy, and for irreversible change. My heart thundered. The secret was no longer just mine. It was a shared moment, a delicate, dangerous, and thrilling truth hanging between us. And as the flash of cameras continued, the guests murmured, and the rivals' sharp gaze lingered, I realized one undeniable truth. Nothing would ever be the same again. The world I had carefully navigated, the secret, the thrill, the hidden identity, had reached its apex. Every heartbeat, every glance, every step on those precarious heels carried the risk of exposure, but also the intoxicating promise of transformation. Tonight, the balance had shifted. I was caught between fear and exhilaration, secrecy and revelation, vulnerability and empowerment. And as the emerald dress shimmered under the chandeliers, as Isabella and the rival closed in, as my friend's gaze lingered with awe, I knew the climax of this night, of my secret, my transformation, and my dual identity, was only just beginning. The ballroom seemed to pulse around me. Every shimmer of crystal, every flash of the camera, every whisper of conversation felt amplified, a chaotic symphony that mirrored the storm inside me. My emerald dress clung perfectly, my heels elevated each step, and yet, beneath it all, my heart raced with the certainty that one misstep could unravel everything. Isabella's hand remained lightly on my arm, steady and grounding, while her eyes searched mine. I could feel the tension in her gaze, the unspoken question that hung heavy between us. My friend's astonishment lingered, his jaw slightly slack, as if processing a reality he never could have imagined. And the rival, her smirk had sharpened, dangerous and teasing, as if she knew I was perched on the very edge of exposure. I took a slow, deliberate step, the heels clicking against the polished floor, each movement calculated. The room felt like it had narrowed to just us four, every other guest a blur. My chest tightened, sweat prickling the small of my back, and the dress felt both like armor and a trap. This was the culmination of everything I had risked, every secret I had guarded, every thrill and fear that had built over weeks of clandestine preparation. Suddenly, the rival spoke, her voice low and deliberate, carrying across the small space between us. "I can see it, all of it. But the question is, will you admit it?" Her words were sharp, teasing, a blade of suspense slicing through the fragile calm I had tried to maintain. My pulse surged, every nerve alive. Admit what? My secret? My transformation? Or the thrill I felt standing here, fully exposed, yet defiant? I forced a smile, letting the persona radiate calm confidence even as panic churned beneath the surface. I'm just trying something new," I murmured, the lie fragile yet believable, the words trembling with the weight of possibility. The rival's eyes narrowed, curiosity and challenge mixing in a way that made my stomach flip. Then came the ultimate test. A sudden commotion near the staircase. A guest had slipped, sending a tray of sparkling drinks tumbling to the ground, drew the attention of everyone nearby. In the chaos, I misstepped. The heel of my emerald shoe caught on the edge of the marble, sending a jolt of panic through my body. I staggered forward, the clutch slipping from my fingers, the dress catching awkwardly as I braced against the railing. Gasps erupted. Cameras clicked. The room collectively held its breath. Every eye turned toward me, and in that suspended moment, I realized how completely exposed I was, vulnerable, visible, and utterly at the mercy of perception. Isabella's hands were there in an instant, steadying me, her touch warm and grounding. "I've got you," she whispered, her voice a lifeline. Relief surged through me, but it was tinged with a dangerous excitement. The thrill of near discovery, the rush of adrenaline, the intoxicating tension of dual identity, it all surged at once, overwhelming every rational thought. The rival leaned closer, voice a whisper that seemed to pierce the charged air. "Careful, secrets like these have a way of slipping out when you least expect it." Her eyes sparkled with mischief and menace, and I felt the full weight of the moment. The danger, the thrill, the fear, they were all concentrated in her gaze, daring me to falter. My friend, still frozen, finally stepped forward, his eyes wide but softening. "You look incredible," he breathed. The words hit me like a wave, a mixture of admiration and disbelief that left me simultaneously relieved and terrified. If anyone else heard him, the secret could unravel entirely. Yet his awe also reminded me that some connections, some truths, could survive exposure if approached with care. I straightened, lifting my chin, letting the persona shine. The dress shimmered, the heels clicked with precise rhythm, and the wig framed my face perfectly. In that electrifying instant, I embraced every aspect of myself. The secret, the glamorous transformation, the vulnerability, and the confidence that had carried me this far. I was fully exposed, yet unbroken. And then, the final twist, a whisper from across the room. Isabella's voice, soft but charged. "I need to know all of it." Her eyes locked onto mine, the warmth mixed with curiosity, the underlying tension almost unbearable. Every muscle tensed. The truth, the thrill, the risk, it all came crashing together. One word, one revelation, and everything could change forever. I felt the weight of the emerald dress, the tightness of the heels, the wig slightly shifting. Every heartbeat thundered in my ears. I was poised at the very edge of discovery, the knife edge between fear and exhilaration, secrecy and revelation. And in that suspended, electric moment, I realized the transformation had already claimed more than my appearance. It had reshaped my courage, my confidence, and my willingness to face exposure, no matter the consequences. The room's energy seemed to pulse with mine. Every flash of the camera, every whispered comment, every glance magnifying the stakes. I was no longer merely playing a role. I was living it, daring to survive exposure, daring to embrace the thrill, and daring to confront the consequences of being fully, unapologetically seen. And then it happened. A sharp knock at the grand doors, just audible over the murmurs and camera flashes. Silence fell instantly. Every eye turned. Isabella's hand squeezed mine lightly. The rival's smirk faltered for a heartbeat, curiosity turning to anticipation. My friend's jaw tightened, his astonishment now tinged with anxiety. The knock echoed again. Louder.
Insistent.
Someone who shouldn't have been here, was at the door. And in that single, heart-stopping moment, I realized, whatever happened next could change everything. The secret, the transformation, the delicate balance of fear and thrill, it all hung on the edge, poised for the final revelation. I took a deep, measured breath, standing tall in heels that now felt like extensions of my resolve. The emerald dress shimmered under the chandelier, my wig perfectly in place, every detail poised for confrontation. And as the room held its collective breath, the knock sounded once more, insistent, demanding, inescapable. And there it was, the cliffhanger. Everything was about to change. The knock at the grand doors reverberated through the ballroom like a drumbeat of inevitability. Every gaze in the room turned toward the entrance. My heart pounded violently, each beat a sharp reminder of the precarious position I was in. The emerald dress clung to me like a second skin, heels balancing me on a knife edge, wig perfectly in place, but all of it felt fragile, as if a single wrong movement could shatter the illusion I had so painstakingly built. Isabella's hand remained on mine, grounding me even as her eyes searched for answers. The warmth and curiosity in her gaze were mixed with caution, She could sense that something extraordinary was unfolding, something she wasn't entirely prepared for. My rival's smirk had transformed into a look of predatory anticipation, eyes glinting with the knowledge that she was witnessing a secret potentially on the verge of unraveling. My friend's astonishment lingered, frozen in awe and disbelief, as if he couldn't yet reconcile the image of me before him with the person he knew. His presence was a reminder that the secret wasn't mine alone anymore. Someone outside my carefully controlled circle was now witnessing this transformation, and there was no going back. The knock came again, louder, more insistent. A wave of dread swept over me, the adrenaline spiking so sharply that my breath caught in my throat. The ballroom seemed to narrow, the chandeliers overhead reflecting the tension in glittering shards across the polished floor. Every step, every glance, every heartbeat felt magnified, and the heels beneath me clicked with an almost mocking precision. I took a slow, deliberate breath, attempting to steady the tremor in my limbs. The thrill of exposure still pulsed through me, fierce and intoxicating, but it was now intertwined with fear, the raw, paralyzing fear of discovery. The dress shimmered with every flicker of light. The wig framed my face with precision, yet none of it mattered if the secret I had guarded so fiercely was about to be revealed. Isabella leaned closer, whispering softly, "Do you want me to open it?" Her question hung in the air, weighty with consequence. My pulse thundered. Every instinct screamed caution, yet part of me, the part that had reveled in the thrill of the transformation, longed to see what would happen if the truth was confronted. Before I could respond, the doors swung open with a sudden force, and the figure in the doorway appeared. The room froze. My stomach dropped, a wave of panic and exhilaration crashing together. The person standing there wasn't expected, someone from my past, someone who knew enough to jeopardize everything. The shock hit me in a visceral way, the heels beneath me feeling suddenly treacherous, the floor threatening to give way. The figure paused, scanning the room, eyes locking on me. I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks, the emerald fabric of the dress tightening against my chest as if it were amplifying my vulnerability. My hands trembled slightly, clutching the small bag I had held like a lifeline. Every sense was on high alert, every nerve vibrating with the tension of the moment. "Is this really you?" The voice asked low, incredulous, filled with the shock of recognition. It sliced through the air, turning the room into a suspended bubble of suspense. My mind raced. Could I explain? Could I maintain composure? Or was this the point where everything would collapse, the persona and the secret both exposed in one irreversible moment? The rival's eyes gleamed with delight, sensing the ultimate tension, while Isabella's gaze softened, tinged with both concern and fascination. My friend stepped back slightly, a mix of awe and fear etched across his face. And I realized that the transformation, the cross-dressing, the persona, the thrill of hidden power, had led me to this precipice. One wrong word, one misstep, and the entire carefully constructed illusion could unravel. I forced a smile, though it felt fragile, like a fragile mask stretched over raw panic. "Yes, it's me," I whispered, voice barely audible over the soft gasp that echoed through the room. The figure in the doorway blinked, disbelief warring with recognition, and for a heartbeat, time itself seemed suspended. Then, a second knock, sharper, more insistent, came from the other side of the doors, as if the universe itself were testing my composure. My pulse raced uncontrollably. The adrenaline, fear, excitement, and vulnerability collided inside me, creating a dizzying cocktail of sensation. The heels beneath me now felt like perilous stilts, every movement a calculated risk. I glanced at Isabella, her eyes wide with a mixture of concern and fascination. "Whatever happens," she whispered, her voice trembling slightly, "we face it together." Her words were a lifeline, yet they carried the weight of the unknown. The figure took a deliberate step forward, each motion measured, each breath heavy with suspense. I felt the emerald dress brush against my thighs, the wig shift slightly as my pulse thudded violently. I was caught between fear and exhilaration, secrecy and revelation, vulnerability and empowerment. Every heartbeat was a countdown, every glance a test of control. And then it happened. The moment froze, the room suspended in tense anticipation. My rival's smirk widened, Isabella's gaze locked onto mine. My friend's eyes were wide with disbelief, and the figure in the doorway took another step forward. I realized that everything, my secret, my transformation, my dual identity, was about to collide with reality. The final seconds stretched, elongated by suspense, each one dripping with uncertainty. Would I be discovered? Would the figure recognize me? Would Isabella accept the truth, or would the fragile balance of the evening shatter? The tension was almost unbearable, yet thrilling beyond comprehension. And then, a sudden interruption. The doors behind the figure swung open once more, and a muffled voice called out. Everyone turned. The suspense doubled, tripled, the room now charged with energy so intense it was almost tangible. I was standing on the razor's edge of revelation, my emerald dress shimmering, heels precarious, wig perfectly in place, but the next moment could change everything. I inhaled sharply, gripping the clutch tightly, feeling the full weight of exposure and exhilaration. The world held its breath with me. And then, with one final heartbeat suspended in time, the story froze. Everything was about to change. And that's where we leave it, on the edge, unresolved, leaving the audience desperate to know what happens next.